Algebra 1, this is the last video containing new material and lessons from the book of the year for 2020. So after this, we have a book homework due tomorrow, and then we'll just dig into the review sheets for the finals, where we'll do some things there to brush up on some old things. Today in 12.8, we're trying to solve equations that have radicals in them. So the ruling on this is that we want to be able to solve these. We want to isolate the radical, meaning it's all by itself, and then we want to square it, because we're still continuing to try to do opposites to solve equations, and the opposite of rooting is squaring. So the first few start off a little bit easier because the radical's already alone. This is already alone on its side. So is this, so is this, so is this, so is this. This is the first one that we'll have to do that step, because this radical has numbers on its side. We'll have to get this alone before we do anything else. But for these, the radical already being alone, we just need to square. If you square a square root, it just writes you down the radicand. We're just going to copy the x underneath there, that's called the radicand, and the root sign gets eliminated, because squaring kills roots. If we're going to square this side, we have to square that side. And 49 is it for that one. This, if we square the left, we get rid of the root. If you square the right, 10 times 10 is 100. That one's not done because x isn't alone. We have another opposite to do. Since it's multiplying 5, we divide 5. Divide 5 into 100, and that is 20. This, we're alone, so we square. That leaves us our x. If we square this, we just need to do 5/7 times itself. 5 times 5 on top, 7 times 7 on the bottom. We get that as an answer. This, when we square, we just erase the radical sign again. When we square the other side, 3 times 3 is 9. Since that's dividing, I have to multiply. 5 times 9 is 45. I didn't do it till now, but we could check any of these. If we put the number in, as always, 45 dividing 5 is 9. And then the root of 9 is 3. They're always checkable. This, we get x minus 8 surviving. On the right side, square 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Since that's subtracting, I'm adding, and I come out with 33. If the radical's alone, you can square right away. But here, I described a minute ago, we have an extra step at the beginning. We need the radical to be alone before we're able to do our squaring. Since this is adding 2, I'll do the opposite and subtract 2's to wipe the 2's out. Subtract 2 over there creates a 5. Then do our squaring. Squaring to get rid of the root. 5 times 5 is 25. Since that's multiplying, we'll divide, and that's going to be a fraction, 25 on top of 3. For this, we need to do 2 opposites. We always save the multiplying, dividing stuff for last. So I'm going to leave that alone. I need to get rid of the 10. Since it's a positive 10, I'll subtract 10. Subtracting 10 over there makes us a negative. To get the root alone, I'd have to divide. Since this is multiplying, I'll have to divide. Negative 2 into negative 10 is a positive 5. And then I'll get rid of the root by squaring. If I square this, the root is gone. 5 becomes 25, and we're good. Again, we could check if we want. The root of 25 is 5. 5 times 2 is 10. 10 subtracted from 10 is 0. Everything's working just fine. This radical needs to be made alone. To get rid of it, add 5. We'll subtract 5. Once the radical's alone, we make the radical sign disappear by squaring. When you square the radical side, just copy the number under the root. Copy the radicand. When you square the other side, we get a new number. 6 times 6 is 36. And then do normal opposites. Adding or subtracting first. Subtract 3 to get rid of it. Add 3. Gets me 33. Dividing to finish gets me a fraction. Dividing by 2 puts the 2 on the bottom. And we have that. If you think you have the hang of it, try a few. Pause the video and just see if you can do it. To get this alone, I first get rid of the add 8 by subtracting 8. Subtracting 8 gets me a 10 over there. To get the radical alone, I'll divide 5. Dividing 5 gets me 2. Now that the radical's alone, I'll square to get rid of the radical. And the 2, I need 2 times 2 is 4. And then the answer will be a fraction, 4 on top of 3. For this, get the radical alone, get rid of the 3 by dividing, it gets a 4. Since the radical's alone, we square to get rid of the radical. 4 times 4 is 16. And then for the answer, dividing, gets me an 8. For this one, to get the radical alone, I have to subtract 3 to get that out of there. Subtracting 3 gets me 2. Squaring then gets rid of the radical. 2 times 2 is 4. And then since this is subtracting 1, I add 1, and I get a 5. And again, I can always check. 5 minus 1 is 4, root of 4 is 2, 2 plus 3 is 5, it's all good. For this, I'd have to subtract 8 to get rid of that. Then I look to divide by 4. And then I'm going to tell you this problem has no answer, because there's a rule on math that we talked about the first day we did radicals, that when this symbol is used, you're only going to get the principal or positive square root. This symbol is never allowed to equal a negative number. If you see that happening, you could just say, I'm not allowed to do this anymore, and have no answer and get out of there. If you didn't notice that and you tried to keep going, squaring would get an x. Squaring this, negative 2 times negative 2 is a positive 4. If you try to check that answer, 4 rooted is 2, times 4 is 8, adding 8 is not 0. You could still figure out that that wasn't possible even if you didn't notice it back here, but only if you checked your answers. And if you're not in the habit of checking your answers, you might get blown up every once in a while by this rule. Again, the rule is the radical sign cannot equal a negative. That's not allowed. Last one, to get this radical alone, I would look to add the 5 to get a 12. When I do my squaring, that gets rid of the root sign. 12 times 12 is 144. To get the x alone, there's a fraction here. I need to get a flip going. 3 over 2 has to multiply that. You could do a cancel. 216 is what should turn out on that one. Let me check my paper and make sure. Yeah, I'm good for that. I just wanted to make sure I didn't copy that and be messy, that the root was covering the whole fraction, which it was. So we're good there. We can check that one. 216 times 2 is 432. 432 dividing 3 is 144. Rooting 144 is 12 minus 5. It is 7. That does work, and we're good. So, hope you're okay with that. If you have questions, send me an email. We'll talk on Zoom. We'll work it out somehow. There's no quizzes or tests or reviews on Chapter 12. We're just diving into the practice final year-end review, and all the Chapter 12 stuff will be part of that. So we'll get the test that way. See ya.